The 2019 Australian Open draw is out, and there are tough matches galore for the top season players. Today we'll be analyzing the projected pathway for the likes of Roger Federer, Novak Djokovic, Serena Williams, and more. And I'll be giving my opinion on who I think will make it all the way here on Grand Slam Tennis News Today. World number 1 Novak Djokovic will start his campaign for a 7th Australian Open title against an unknown qualifier, and he could face Joel Songlo in the second round. World number 2 Rafael Nadal will face off against their wildcard Aussie James Duckworth, and could face another Aussie in the likes of Alex de Minaur in the third round. Two-time defending champion Roger Federer will face off against Denis Istomin, the man who beat Djokovic in the 2017 Australian Open second round. Reigning ATP Needles Finals champion Alexander Zverev will start his campaign against Slovenia's Alias Benne. South African and Pune champion Kevin Anderson will start off against tricky Frenchman Adrian Manarino, while defending finalist Marin Cilic will start off against tricky Aussie Bernard Tomic. Dominic Thiem, who is winless on the season so far, will start off against Benoit Paire, and finally, Brisbane champion Kei Nishikori will start off against their qualifier. Novak Djokovic can potentially face off against upcoming Russian Daniil Medvedev in the round of 16, while Fabio Fognini has a chance of taking on Kei Nishikori. Also, Marin Cilic could face off against Paris champion Karen Khachanov. Greek freak Stefanos Tsitsipas can face off against Roger Federer. In a battle of the giants, Kevin Anderson could potentially face off against American John Isner, and finally, Britain's Kyle Edmund can face off against number 2 seed Rafael Nadal. Now, 5-time finalist Andy Murray has a very difficult draw, facing off against Doha champ Roberto Bautista Agut in the first round. And should he win, he could face off against John Milliam in the second round and Karen Khachanov in the third round, followed by Cilic in the fourth round, Federer in the quarterfinal, and Nadal in the semifinal. And then should he get to the final, he'll face off against Novak Djokovic should he make it. Now, I don't think that Murray will win his first round match against Roberto Bautista Agut. I think that Agut is much more in shape than Murray is, and has a lot of confidence coming off his Doha run. Now, Agut isn't known for his deep Grand Slam runs, but I think that Agut has the confidence to knock off Murray, and Murray is not as match fit as he usually is. So I picked that Roberto Bautista Agut will knock off Andy Murray in the first round of the Australian Open. Another popcorn match is Milos Raonic facing off against Nick Kyrgios. Now, there's a lot of stuff going on with Nick Kyrgios. He's recently partnered up with Nike and Kyrie Irving for a sick new collab for a basketball tennis shoe. And he's also been bitten by a bug that could potentially catch him out of the Brisbane International. He's also been trolling with the press, saying that he hasn't been practicing or he hasn't been training as much as the preseason. And I really don't think that he's in shape enough to take out Raonic. Raonic is much more professional than Nick Kyrgios. He's much more workmanlike. I really feel like he's much more prepared for going not even 7 matches, but just winning this match against Nick Kyrgios. Nick Kyrgios doesn't truly take it seriously and doesn't really do what he needs to do in order to be successful in the ATP Tour, such as his compatriot Alex de Minaur does. So I picked that Milos Raonic will win this match in about 4 sets. Now, some other good popcorn matches that are intriguing for the first round is Stanislav Wawrinka versus Laura Golpis, Tomas Berdych versus Kyle Edmund, Bernard Tomic versus Marin Cilic, and Grigor Dimitrov versus Jenko Tipsarevic. On the men's side, I believe that there will be quite a few upsets on day 1. There's a potential upset of Elias Benedict upsetting Alexander Zverev, as he was injured in his practice match and he has been suffering with a hamstring pull. I also believe that American Bradley Klein will upset Hyung Chong, as I believe the pressure of defending his semifinal Australian Open points would be too much for the South Korean to handle. There's also a possibility of Nick Kyrgios upsetting Milos Raonic, although I do not believe that will happen. I also believe that Kyle Edmund will fall in the first round to Tomas Berdych, as Kyle Edmund has a lot of stuff on his mind heading into this year's Australian Open, trying to defend his 2018 Australian Open semifinalist points. Tomas Berdych is also a tough cookie to face in the first round of any Grand Slam, and he's coming into the 2019 Australian Open with a lot of confidence, coming off a 2019 Doha final. Now, in a battle of the tallest Grand Slam match in history between the two Americans, Riley Opelka and John Isner, I believe that Riley Opelka will upset his elder American, John Isner, as John is coming off a tough first-round loss in Auckland to compatriot Taylor Fritz, where Riley Opelka is coming off a strong week in Sydney, playing a tough second-round match against Alex de Minaur. Now, I'm going to start off with the two players I think will make the men's final, which are Novak Djokovic and Roger Federer. While Djokovic's draw might seem tough to some, I don't see anyone really challenging him, as when he faces tougher oppositions, he seems to rise to the occasion and he actually plays better than if he were playing a weaker opponent. And while he is in the same draw as Kei Nishikori, I believe that once Kei gets deeper and deeper into tournaments, it's kind of harder for him to maintain his good play, as there has been injury concerns in the past where he has had to withdraw from Grand Slams in the past due to injury picked up in the tournaments. So I don't think that, although he won Brisbane, I don't think it's a good bet on him going past Djokovic if they should meet in the quarterfinal. I just think that Roger has a really good draw in comparison to the other top players. He faces Dennis Easterman in the first round, who beat Novak Djokovic in the second round of the 2017 Australian Open, but he hasn't really been up to that kind of play since then. And should Roger get through that match, he'll face a qualifier either way. And his first scheduled seeded opponent is Gael Monfils, who's really flashy, inconsistent, and we'll never know which Gael Monfils will show up. In the round of 16, he could face off against Tsitsipas, who really isn't known for going deep into Grand Slams. And should he face off against Roger, I don't think his game is up to where it needs to be in order to challenge the Swiss maestro. Although Roger might face off against Cilic in the quarterfinals, I don't believe that Cilic is up to his good form, as he is very inconsistent. It's once in a blue moon where Marin Cilic goes deep into a Grand Slam. He does good in some Grand Slams, and he does really poorly in other Grand Slams. So I think that Roger Federer will get through his quarter of the draw in convincing fashion. The reason why I think Rafael Nadal will not make it to the Australian Open final is because, one, he's in the same section as Roger Federer, who's playing really well, coming off his Hopman Cup title. Second, no one really knows how Rafa feels, not even Rafa. While he says he's really feeling well in practice and he's pain-free, it's really tough to gauge the best of five, and it's in the Australian Open heat, and that can really test his injuries and can create new injuries. So I don't think it's smart to bet on Rafa at all. And Alex de Minaur, is a possibility that should Rafa continue to play, because he might back out of the tournament, Alex de Minaur can trouble Rafa. Although Rafa has beat him in the two prior Grand Slam matches that they've faced, I think de Minaur is really in form. He's still in the Sydney draw, and he has the game and firepower and the crowd behind him to challenge Rafa on any day in the Australian Open tournament this year. Kevin Anderson is also a concern for Rafa, as Rafa doesn't really play well against big servers, as it messes up his rhythm, and he doesn't return as well. And John Isner looms also in that quarter of the draw. Now who do I think will win the Australian Open? I have to go with Novak Djokovic. Djokovic leads the head-to-head versus Federer in all aspects. Head-to-head, he leads 25-22. Hardcore head-to-head, he leads 19-17. Australian Open head-to-head, he leads 3-1. And Slam Finals head-to-head, he leads 3-1 as well. I believe it will be a tough five-setter should this match happen. While I think that Roger Federer is in really good form and he could take the title, I believe that Novak is just far superior and going deeper into the Slam Finals. On the women's side, world number one Simona Halep will have to face off against her US Open conqueror Kaya Kanepi, and she has a possibility of facing off against Serena Williams in the round of 16. Angelique Kerber will have to face off against Slovenia's Polona Hercog. Defending champion Caroline Wozniacki will face off against Alison Van Oenfink. 2018 US Open champion Naomi Osaka will have to face off against Poland's Magna Linette. Sloane Stephens will face off against fellow American Taylor Townsend. Both 6 and 7 seeds, Elena Svitolina and Karolina Pliskova, will have to face off against qualifiers in their opening matches. And finally, Petra Kvitova will face off against former Wimbledon semifinalist Magdalena Rybarikova. Now, quite frankly, I don't believe that Simona Halep will make it to the round of 16 of the Australian Open. I say this because she's not as fit as she needs to be, as she usually is, and I believe that she is not as confident as she usually is without her coach and without winning a match since August. I believe Brisbane champion Karolina Pliskova will make it to the quarterfinals to face off against Serena should they meet. I honestly don't believe that Naomi Osaka will make it that far in this tournament. While she did play pretty well in Brisbane despite a major hiccup against Lucia Sarenko, I believe that she'll have a letdown. I believe that happens to almost everyone on the tour, where after they win a Grand Slam, they have a letdown. It's very rare where a player wins their first Grand Slam and they perform well, winning another one. I think the last time that happened on the women's tour was Venus Williams winning Wimbledon in 2002, her first Grand Slam, and then subsequently winning the 2000 US Open Championship. So I do not believe that Naomi Osaka will make it that far. I believe that she has a chance of making the quarterfinals, but I don't believe that she'll make it to the semifinals or further in this tournament. I believe that Elise Mertens will actually upset Svitolina should they meet in the round of 16. Elise Mertens is a very tricky player and actually beat Svitolina in the quarterfinals of this same tournament last year. I also believe that Petra Kvitova will not make it that far in this tournament. Petra has a tendency of playing well in lower level tournaments, such as how she's playing well right now in Sydney. She recently just beat Angelique Kerber today, 6-4, 6-1. And last year, she was the favorite for the Wimbledon title, and the year before that, but she ended up losing early. So I believe that Kvitova, she's prone for letdowns, and when she really does well in tournaments, she has subpar results. And I believe that Aryna Sabalenka, should they meet in the round of 16, will dispatch of her. I believe Ashley Barty will go far in this tournament, as she seems to really thrive off of playing in her home country. It was shown in her round of 16 match with Sydney when she beat Simona Halep. She was pumping the crowd up, getting them involved in the match, and really getting psyched off and feeding off the crowd's energy in her upset over Simona Halep. Now, she's much different than Sam Stosur, who actually fears playing in her home country. Ashley Barty is scheduled to play against defending champion Caroline Wozniacki in the round of 16. I believe that Caroline is not up to where she needs to be. She's diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and I actually believe that will affect her a lot. I know that she's made some lifestyle changes in that she says that it will be okay, but I believe that this condition will heavily affect her in her bid for a second Australian Open title. Now, while Sloane Stephens has disappointed this year so far, going 1-2 in her 2 tournaments, Brisbane and Sydney, I believe that she'll do surprisingly well. Sloane seems to do really well in Grand Slam tournaments, or not even Grand Slam tournaments, but big tournaments in general after having letdowns. She seems to really know when to pump herself up and really knows what to work on after she has disappointments. I believe that should she face off against Kiki Bertens in the round of 16, she'll win that match. Lastly, Angelique Kerber has been on fire. She's won 4 matches against Hopman Cup, only suffering a blemish in Sydney against Petra Kvitova, who's on fire. I don't believe that Julia Gerges will give her much of a threat, as Julia is very inconsistent, and as their compatriots, Kerber knows Julia's game very well. So I do not believe that Julia will challenge Kerber, as Kerber's game style really seems to challenge Julia. A dark horse in any tournament by that matter, is Victoria Azarenka, who faces off against Laura Siegemund. I actually think Vika has a pretty good draw. Should she get past Siegemund, she has the possibility of facing Shea Suwei, who Vika has a very good chance of beating. Shea Suwei isn't one of the higher level seeds. She's beatable, but she's a very tricky opponent. And I believe that there's also a possibility of Naomi Osaka and Vika playing in the 3rd round, which I actually think that Vika could take should they play. It would also be an interesting match, as the former coach of Vika, Sasa Bajin, is now with the current coach, Naomi Osaka. So it will be a battle of the coaches. and former coach. While I don't think that she'll go that very far in this tournament, I believe that Venus Williams is also a dangerous floater. She faces off against 25th seed Michaela Buzarnescu, who hasn't won a match since August as well, such as Simona Halep. Surprisingly seeded 18th, Garbina Muguruza is also a very dangerous floater as she starts off against Sasai Zhang and could face either Ayla Tomljanovic or Jo Konta, which would be a very difficult second round match. I believe that should she get through that, she'll have a good chance of making it to the round of 16. She could face Daria Kasatkina in the third round, although she hasn't been playing very well to start off her 2019 season, suffering upsets in both Sydney and Brisbane. So I believe that Garbina Muguruza is a very dangerous floater. I also believe 17th seed Madison Keys is a very dangerous floater in this tournament. Keys, her luck of the draws continues as she usually gets fairly favorable draws, and she has another fairly favorable draw. And Keys seems to thrive off of the Grand Slams, and she seems to play a lot better in Grand Slams in comparison to the smaller tournaments. So I believe that Madison Keys will go very far in this tournament, and she's a very dangerous dark horse. And I also believe that Maria Sharapova is a potential dark horse as she has a fairly favorable draw in the first two rounds as she's scheduled to face off against a qualifier in the first round and then potentially against Rona Kristeva in the second round, who hasn't really been making any noise in the WTA Tour lately. But she's not that big of a dark horse as she has the potential of facing off against Caroline Wozniacki. While I do not believe that Caroline Wozniacki will make it this far into the tournament, I believe that should her and Sharapova face off, I give Wozniacki the edge, as Sharapova is not physically fit as Wozniacki is, as she had to retire from her Shenzhen quarterfinal match against Aryna Sabalenka. So I believe that Maria Sharapova is a potential dark horse. It's a dark horse, but I do not believe that she will make it past the third round of the Australian Open. Now, I most definitely think that Buzarnescu would be upset by Venus Williams. I call that upset because she's a 7-time Grand Slam champion, and that is not an upset. But according to the seedings, it is. I actually do not think that Simona Halep will be upset by Kaya Kanepi, as Kanepi has not been match tough. She has been playing matches since she lost to Serena Williams in the round of 16. So I do not think that will be an upset. But I do think most definitely that Jelena Ostapenko will be upset. She's the 22nd seed as she faces off against Maria Sakkari, who has been very in form. Jelena Ostapenko has not been in form as she has not won very many matches on the tour. And she's 0-2 on the year, and she recently lost to Ashley Barty in Sydney in straight sets. So I believe that would be the main two biggest upsets would be Buzarnescu and Jelena Ostapenko on the women's side. I believe that Serena Williams and Angelique Kerber will face off in the 2019 Australian Open final, thus being a rematch of their 2016 match of the Australian Open final. I believe that Serena is motivated. I believe that Serena has been training hard and that she's determined to brush off her disappointing two finals. While two major finals coming off her pregnancy is very good, she's not satisfied with that, and she's very keen on having us plant a new memory inside of our heads instead of that unfortunate 2018 US Open event that happened. I believe that she's motivated. I believe that she's determined to prove her naysayers wrong and achieve the great feat of winning 24 Grand Slam titles. Now I believe Angelique Kerber will make it to the Australian Open final because while she's recently suffered a loss against Petra Kvitova, she too seems to do better when she has losses or when there's not as much momentum heading in, and that gives her more of a chance to relax. As when it happened in her first Grand Slam 2016 Australian Open title, no one expected it. Her 2016 US Open title, she was about to win Cincinnati, but she lost to Karolina Pliskova. That took pressure off of her. And so I believe that she'll have no pressure coming into the Australian Open. She'll be free. And she's also gifted with a very good draw, I believe, and that no one really can challenge her. While Serena has a 1-2 head-to-head disadvantage to Angelique Kerber, she knows how to get pumped up for the very important matches, especially when opponents have beaten her in the past. I believe that Serena will study Angelique Kerber's game much more, such as she did in the 2016 Wimbledon final. Serena never gets beat twice by the same opponent consecutively in Grand Slam finals. So she'll make sure that she's more prepared. She'll make sure that she's more physically fit against the challenge of Kerber, as she was not physically fit in the 2018 Wimbledon final. So therefore, I believe that Serena Williams will be much more prepared and much more well up to deal with the challenge of the grinding Angelique Kerber. Therefore, I believe that Serena Williams will take home the 2019 Australian Open title. That's all for today's video, and do you agree with my predictions? Who do you think will take home the Daphne Akhurst and Norman Trophy? Do you agree that Novak Djokovic will win and that Serena Williams will take the title? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and thank you for watching here on Grand Slam Tennis News Today.